What's up, space pirates? This is your captain, the devilishly debonair Dr. Disaster, and today, let's talk some more Star Wars, shall we? Because the dumpster fire keeps on burning. It's a dead franchise. Kathleen Kennedy killed it. What you see these days is just its zombified corpse roaming around, sucking out people's brains. And the topic of today's video is more evidence that the franchise is being clubbed to death by incompetence. Recently, Daisy Ridley did an interview in which it sounds like she's throwing out chum into the water for Star Wars fans to gobble up in regards to her new film. It sounds like the sort of thing Lucasfilm would do to draw attention away from the real news, which is this. More and more, it is looking like the upcoming Rey film won't even get made. We covered this a few days ago, of course, talking about the news that they still don't have a script for this new movie, even though there's only a couple months before they were scheduled to begin production on the thing. Well, in this video, we are going to have a peek at a report which suggests the script is having major problems, causing the film to be delayed.
Oh, what a loser!
If this is true, then the movie is probably not going to be made, which is just about the worst case possible scenario for Kathleen Kennedy. After all, they made such a big deal out of this movie last year at Star Wars Celebration. This now will only feed her critics, who absolutely love to make fun of her pathetic failures. Do any of you know someone like that?
Well, of course I know him. He's me.
Alright, let's take a look at the report that the Rey Star Wars film is being indefinitely suspended. But before we do, make sure you hit that like button, and also make sure to follow me on Twitter or X or whatever the kids are calling it these days. My handle there is Dr. Disaster 1. In any event, here's the report from worldofreal.com. Admittedly, it's not my favorite website in the world, but the guy who runs it, Jordan Ruumi, does have connections in Hollywood, and he's been right about this sort of thing before. The headline for this article says simply, "Upcoming Rey Star Wars movie delayed indefinitely." And then the article reads, Daisy Ridley is set to reprise her role as Rey Skywalker in Charmin Obaid-Chinoy's upcoming Star Wars film. We don't know much about this movie except for the controversial remarks its filmmaker has made, and that it might be titled New Jedi Order. So, I'm usually not really keen on looking for Star Wars intel, but a well-informed source is giving me additional details on the current status of this film, and it is not good news. I've been told that Disney has delayed the film indefinitely, which is why they surprised everyone last week and decided to announce The Mandalorian and Grogu as the next Star Wars movie. They just don't have confidence that New Jedi Order will be happening in the near future. Well, that's what a lot of us were thinking last week when they announced the Mandalorian and Grogu film. After all, they made such a big production out of the Rey film last year at Star Wars Celebration, and they made a point of letting it be known that of all the new movies coming out, that Rey was going to be the first one released. Well, the writer goes on, the problem seems to reside in creative differences between screenwriter Stephen Knight and Lucasfilm. I'm told that a draft had originally been written for the film, but Lucasfilm gave him so many notes that he had to start from scratch. To make matters worse, there is the possibility that Knight might not be staying on board the project. His frustrations have grown. He's put Star Wars on the back burner and is now focused on the screenplay for his Peaky Blinders movie, which is supposed to go into production in the fall. These issues with Knight come only 2 years after development on the film started and various drafts had circulated, with different writers including Damon Lindelof and Justin Britt Gibson, both eventually exiting this untitled Rey Skywalker movie. Knight came aboard soon after. It was widely reported and believed that this Rey movie would be the first one to get released, and a May 22nd, 2026 release date had been announced last year for it. This past November, Ridley had insinuated that the next Star Wars film to be released theatrically was going to be hers. Things have clearly changed. Alright, so you may remember the story I told the other day when we were talking about this Rey film and the fact that they didn't have a script ready yet. I told a story about an old coworker of mine who claimed that he had written a book when in fact all he had was an idea for a book. Yeah, that's literally what Lucasfilm is doing here. They announced this movie to the world, and now, like chumps, they have to scramble to actually write something. And rather than be honest, which executives like Kathleen Kennedy are completely loath to do, if there's anything they hate, it's honesty, because then they'd have to admit they aren't infallible and that they F up. In the case of Kennedy, she'd be making public admissions every damn day, but rather than be honest and tell the world they're having problems, they try to hide it behind excitement for a different project like with Mandalorian and Grogu. Or they try to hide it with stuff like this. Daisy Ridley giving interviews where she discusses very bland, generic crap that can be flung around the internet to distract people from the fact that this movie just ain't happening, at least not anytime soon. But let's be fully fair here and cover the fact that several outlets are running with the news that Lucasfilm has confirmed that the project isn't being delayed. This counter rumor originated on Gizmodo. Let's take a look at what they have to say. The headline reads, "No, Rey's Star Wars movie hasn't been delayed."
I don't believe you.
And then the article says, you can take that latest Star Wars rumor and throw it in the Sarlacc pit. Earlier this week, rumors surfaced that the upcoming Charmin Obaid-Chinoy Star Wars film featuring the return of Daisy Ridley as Rey had been delayed indefinitely. The reason? Creative differences with the film's writer Stephen Knight. Well, that's not true according to Lucasfilm. A source at the company told I09 the report is inaccurate and Knight continues to write and be a part of the process. In fact, the company is waiting on his latest draft as you read this. Oh, well, if a source told you that this rumor is false, then it has to be false. Now, obviously, the rumor that the movie is experiencing script issues at all is unsourced as well, but let me ask you this, why oh why would Lucasfilm use an anonymous source to get this information out into the public? They're Lucasfilm. They have nearly infinite reach. If this was accurate, that the film was not experiencing delays, then they could just come right out and say it on their official Twitter account or YouTube channel or on their official website or just about anything. Why the secrecy? Unless, of course, it is true, and they're just feeding this to their loyal corporate media schmucks in an attempt to dull criticism. Well, let me say this weak-ass method of denying that the Rey film is being delayed actually makes me think that it is indefinitely delayed even more, because they are acknowledging that there have been difficulties with the script. Let's reread this sentence here at the end one more time. It says, in fact, the company is waiting on his latest draft as you read this. This sentence acknowledges that there have been multiple drafts, which isn't unusual, but still, they are acknowledging that some part of the rumor is true. this article does nothing to change the mind of anyone who thinks about the situation for more than 2 seconds. But yeah, the news of the day that Stephen Knight's script has been rejected by Lucasfilm is a substantial upgrade over what we discussed the other day. If it's true, and they are having to write this thing from scratch, I see no way that Lucasfilm will be ready to start production by their publicly stated date in April. My guess is that the Mandalorian and Grogu movie actually starts at that time instead, and this movie, this Rey movie, will continue to be alluded to over the next few years, talking about it glowingly and enthusiastically until finally people forget about it, and only those of us who like to mock Kathleen Kennedy and oppose her reign over Star Wars will still mention it. Kinda like the Rian Johnson trilogy, which is still totally, absolutely happening. But what do you think, me hearties? Is the Rey movie even going to be made at this point, or are we watching the whole shebang unravel right before our eyes? Let me know what you think in the comment section, and we'll chat about it there.
Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your captain is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty